Back again at educator.com. We're going to be continuing with our little literature section of the reading comprehension course. We're going to learn about types of narration. Okay, here's our plan in order to understand this. I'm going to give you one quick scene written from 4 different perspectives, and then we'll go over 5 types of narration, and then we'll do some quick fun exercises to recognize what they are. So, here are our different examples and from different perspectives of Doc Flanagan versus the zombies. 1. Doc Flanagan stepped forward and let the Marines handcuff him. I knew it was pointless to resist. I didn't want anyone hurt. I turned around. I felt the Marines cuff me. Fernando and I watched helplessly as they put the cuffs on Doc Flanagan. Kovacs grinned. Doc Flanagan hung his head in shame. Fernando struggled not to fight. The doctor was handcuffed and taken away. This is the exact same scene, but I'm describing it from 1, 2, 3, 4 different perspectives. Now, I know what you're thinking. You said that there were 5 types of narration. I'll be explaining that in a bit, but let's continue. The first type of narration is what we call first-person major character. I knew it was pointless to resist. I didn't want anyone hurt. I felt the Marines cuff me. Well, if it's first-person major character, we have what's called first-person narration. So they're going to say, I saw this. I knew this was going on. Me, I. We're going to use that first-person pronoun all the time. And we're going to be seeing the book and feeling the book through the mind of the protagonist. What's great about this is that it really does draw readers in, and it tells a very intimate and very personal story. There is one hitch, though. First off, we got to know, do we trust that character? We're not just getting what happens, we're getting their interpretation of what happens. And maybe this first-person narrator is not somebody we should trust. Maybe they're not telling the truth, or maybe they're kind of confused as to what's actually going on. Or maybe they're completely cognizant, lucid, and they don't have any flaws at all. I mean, who knows? Here's another example of first-person narration. Fernando and I watched helplessly as they put handcuffs on Doc Flanagan. Well, this is called first-person minor character. And so we have this first-person narration, but it's from a supporting character. It's almost kind of like we're not watching a movie, but we're listening to somebody tell us what's going on in the movie. And it really does draw the readers in. It's very, very personal and very subjective and intimate. And there's somebody that's on the sidelines. A good way to think about this is imagine you're watching Star Wars Episode 4, and the only people who you ever see anything happen from is from the perspective of C-3PO. Again, very personal story. Just like with first-person major character, we have to ask ourselves, do we trust this character? Are they giving us the best interpretation of these events? Are they hiding things from us, or are they lying? Finally, next we have what's called third-person narration. So here third person isn't going to say, I did this, I saw this, we were watching this happening. It would probably go with like, he walked to the store and he bought a glass of milk. So you're talking about he, who, and Doc Flanagan in this case. So Doc Flanagan stepped forward and let the Marines cuff him. Now, if this is third-person observer, we only see what's physically going on in the story, but we can never read the minds of the characters. So this type of narration gives the impression that reading a book feels like you're watching a play. And so would you say this is as intimate as a story? Well, maybe not, but we still might be able to infer character feelings and emotions from maybe just what third-person observer tells us. Here's something that's a little bit more colorful. Kovacs grinned. Doc Flanagan hung his head in shame. Fernando struggled not to fight. This is called third-person omniscient. Now, omniscient, if you remember, just means all-knowing. So third-person omniscient sees everything, just like third-person observer. And the omniscient will be able to feel everything. It can know what one character is feeling and what another character is thinking and how another character feels, and it can jump from one character's perspective to the other's very easily. That is third-person omniscient. Very, very popular. Now that is 1, 2, 3, 4 types of narration. There's one that I've left out, and here's what I'd like you to ask yourself. Imagine if I narrated in third person, he walked to the store, he did this, he bought a book. That is third-person omniscient. But what if we only ever knew the feelings and thoughts of one character, the protagonist? That's called third-person limited omniscient. This is a very, very popular way to tell stories, and it's pretty popular in movies. Naturally, the Harry Potter example is one of the best examples I could ever think of for third-person limited omniscient. It's like we got a camera on a character's shoulder, and we also have like a little, mind-reading device plugged into the character's head. It's not told from, I did this, I saw this, it's Harry did this and Harry did that, but we also get a lot of information on his inner life inside his mind and emotion. That is third-person limited omniscient. So, let's do some quick exercises and let's read these first examples of stories and let's see if we can determine what type of narration it is. Here is one story. In compliance with the request of a friend of mine who wrote to me from the East, I called in a good-natured, growler Simon Wheeler and inquired after to my friend's friend Leonidas W. Smiley. As requested due, I hereinto append the result. I found Simon Wheeler. Okay, what's the narration so far? I. Okay, that is first-person narration. So now let's determine whether this is first-person major character or first-person minor character. I find Simon Wheeler dozing comfortably by a bathroom stove of old, dilapidated tavern in the ancient mining camp of Angels. He noticed I was fat, bald-headed, and had the expression of winning gentleness and simplicity upon his tranquil countenance. How much do we know about this narrator? How much do we know about Simon Wheeler? I'd like you to ask the question, who's more important to the story so far, Mr. Simon Wheeler or the narrator? Well, I do know that this narrator is kind of on a little quest to get in contact with the Simon Wheeler guy. Maybe I don't know why Simon Wheeler is so important or what's going to go on in the story next, but I'm kind of getting the impression here that Simon Wheeler is more important than the narrator. I mean, we get more description than him. I mean, we just know that this guy's fat and bald-headed, but we get a little bit more description about Simon Wheeler so far. So this looks to me that it is first-person minor character. Here's another great one. If you probably want to hear about this, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born, and what a lousy childhood was like, and how my parents were occupied all day before they had me, and all that David Copperfield crap, but I don't like getting into it. If you want to know the truth, in the first place, this stuff bores me. In the second place, my parents would have about 2 hemorrhages apiece if I told you anything pretty personal about them. Okay. This book actually goes on like that for 200 pages. So, first off, what type of narration? I. Okay, so this is first-person narration, and this is a great example of first-person major character. This is a book called Catcher in the Rye, and if you find it and read maybe just the first chapter, it'll give you a great example of first-person narration. And I'd ask you, do you trust this narrator to have a very good understanding of what's going on in his own life right now? Here's another example of narration. As he turned to go on, he spat speculatively. There was a sharp, explosive crackle that startled him. He spat again, and again in the air, before it could fall to the snow, and the spittle crackled. He knew that at 50 below spittle crackled on the snow, but the spittle had crackled in the air. Undoubtedly, it was colder than 50 below. How much colder? He did not know, but the temperature did not matter. He was bound by an old claim on the left fork of Henderson Creek, where the boys were already. He. Okay, so we know that this is third-person narration because it's using the third-person pronoun. It doesn't say, I sat there speculatively and I was startled by an explosive crackle. No, he. So this is third person. So is this a major character or minor character? Well, if it's a major character, well, so far it's the only character, so I'd say it's a major character. But is this an omniscient or observer or limited omniscient third-person narration? I don't think that this is an observer because of this right here. Well, he sat speculatively, and he knew. And it's telling me that it was colder than 50, and it said it did not matter, but it does not matter to him. We know this character's inner life. So this is either third-person omniscient or third-person limited omniscient. Now, how would we know whether or not this is third-person limited omniscient or third-person omniscient? Well, we'd have to keep reading the story, and we'd find out, do we ever know any other character's inner thought, life, and emotion, as well as we know this guy, whoever he is, out in the snow at 50 below? So your assignment is to read through several of the short passages that are posted at the site. Go ahead and have a little chit-chat with your friends and discuss the types of narration that are used, and then compare notes. Now, after that, you get to write your own narration. Pick one of these three, about 500 words. Rewrite a scene from the Veldt from the perspective of the family's house cat. Or rewrite a scene from Shooting an Elephant in a third-person limited omniscient narration. Or rewrite a scene from The Dangerous Game in first person. It's up to you whether you want to pick, major character or minor character or protagonist or antagonist. That's all up to you. So go ahead and have a little fun with that last three options there, and please do that exercise, and then keep going with educator.com.